this is my other rig I've been using, a real simple split shot pop-up rig. The only little difference I make to it is, again, I use a little curved shank, size 8, very sharp little hook. But where you can only do like 10 turns up the shank or whatever, the hook still kicks out at too much of an angle. So I use a little tiny bit of silicone just to rein it in and keep it proper. It's real easy. But one of the biggest little edges is obviously my hook baits. People talk about special hook baits. Well, you know, we've been making special hook baits for a long time now, and there's a few things that stand out, and this is one of them, and I'm not quite prepared to divulge it. But what I will divulge to you is a nice little trick, is because this is a proper pop-up mix, none of this glass rubbish, you know, all these microsphere glass balls that the industry use now to make your pop-ups incredibly buoyant. But what they're doing is they've made your pop-up into a sterile object. It is a sterile object. It might as well be a bit of foam, you know what I mean? There is no food value to it at all whatsoever. And we found out a long time ago that there's a lot of the things we were using as attractors that obviously worked in conjunction with the mixes that we were using for our pop-ups. Now, I'm not a chemist, but I'm not an idiot either. And I've been doing it long enough and caught that many carp doing certain things that is far beyond coincidence. And that's not just me, that's an awful lot of long-term old hand anglers found the same thing as myself. Now that pop-up is made using a proper pop-up mix, using milk proteins, some of which are so expensive their use is almost prohibitive in a thing such as a pop-up mix. But some of the attractors that we use with these definitely work in conjunction with the base mix. And these boilies here, one of my all-time winter favourites, but they work equally well through the summer, but they come into their own once the water temperature drops below 46. Then they're a different gravy entirely. Then they are proper special hook baits. Now, a nice little trick here, you don't see anyone doing it, because they're a proper mix and you've got a nice knot on the hook link, you know, as you pull them on, they're hard to pull onto the air. Well, that is your saviour, because this is something I've also been doing with floaters as well in the last couple of years. I don't use a hair stop. All I've been doing is pulling the loop through and then tucking it back in the hole, which is slightly fiddly, I'll be honest with you, but it's not insurmountable, do you know what I mean? So all you do is you'll tuck that, push it back into the hole, and once that's been out in the lake for an hour, that hole will close up as good as, and there's absolutely no sign of a boilie stop. Because in clearer water, where, you know, not all carp are lookers, what I call lookers, you know, I fish all over the world. I've been to some lakes where the carp's entire feeding and everything it does is based purely upon its sight. You know, it feeds by sight, it goes hunting by sight, big clear, large lakes, you know. And I also fish other lakes where they bumble around in darkness and it's got very little, if anything, to do with sight. You know, their other senses become more defined, their mouth, you know, how finicky they become, do you know what I mean? But when they are looking and they're coming in to look at an hook bait as they're going to take it or not take it, and the same with a floater, you know, whether you believe it or not, I've read a lot of scientific papers and they'll say that a carp's focus comes into clear vision once it gets between 12 and 18 inches from the object that it's about to eat. So you might see that coloured ball out there, you might see it, he might be able to register a colour or something of interest to him, but as he gets very close to it, then his vision comes into view and he actually can focus and see clearly. Which is often why I felt, you know, used to get refusals of floaters at the last second, you know. They obviously want it, they're coming up for it, and right at the last second, obviously it all comes clear to them and in focus, and they think, oh, no, I'm not eating that, I can see something's not right. And fishing with pop-ups is definitely very much like that. I think they can coast up to them. And even I can see, sit up a tree, looking down on a spot on the edge, if there's a pop-up there, I can see the boilie stop myself. I can see it from 25 foot away. So if I can see it from 25 foot away, sitting across the top of a bait, same as like people do with floss, you know, they burn the floss to melt the wax, but once it dries again, it goes clear a lot of the wax, it colours again, and you know, you're left with a big obvious band across the bait, or a big obvious boilie stop. And this method here is really good. I think it, you know, it's the little bits, you know, we always say in fishing, it's the small percentages that make the big percentage difference, and that's one of them little tiny percentage things that I feel has caught me an awful lot of carp in the last couple of winters. But there you go, real simple, stripped back pop-up rig. I've moved more and more away from the chop rig. It's a rig I very rarely use now, because I have to use bigger than average, very buoyant hook baits to get the rig to work how I want it to work. And on a lot of lakes, especially a lake like Sandhurst, you know, it's just wrong. You know, a lot of lakes I fished in the last few winters, people are still using choddies, and it's wrong. It's wrong for the lake. That everything about the fishing and the situation is telling you it's wrong. And I've gone more and more back to little hook, little 11mm pop-ups like the old proper style. They're not as buoyant as chod rig hook baits, but they don't have to be. You know, and with a little shot, you can get these. You can critically balance it, and everything about it once that water goes cold is right. The fish are moving slower, the rig's closer to the bottom, it's sitting nicer. Everything about it is better. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I've gone back to more, you know, almost full circle again, gone back to the basic split shot pop-up rig that serves you so well. It enables me to use a very small, very sharp hook. You know, I'm fining down my approach. It isn't me big choddy ball set 3 inches off the bottom over a big sprays of bait that I've been, it's a totally different game. But yeah, ignore this type of rig at your peril, because for the winter, I can pretty much guarantee that more than 50% of the carp caught by my friends and I will be on an almost identical rig to this, with a little bright, super attractive hook bait. So yeah, give it a go this winter.